Prince William finding Diana's hidden will inside Charles's private vault is the kind of discovery the royal family could never treat as ordinary. It was not a public archive, not a family album, and not a document meant for open discussion. It was private, sealed away from the world, carrying the name of the woman whose death still shadows the monarchy. For William, the shock was not only that the papers existed, it was where they had been kept, and what that location quietly suggested. The deeper question was no longer just what Diana had left behind. It was why those wishes had remained hidden for so long, and why they were sitting so close to the one person her story could never escape. So what did Prince William really find? And why did it leave the palace stunned? The vault was built to protect documents the public would never normally see. Its shelves held private correspondence, legal papers, and records connected to the personal life of the monarch. William had entered with permission to examine family material. Nothing suggested he would find Diana waiting there in her own handwriting. The bundle had been placed behind older files and closed with a seal. Her name appeared across the outer cover, followed by dates stretching from 1993 to 1996. William recognized the importance immediately. Those were the years in which his parents moved from separation toward divorce, while Diana's relationship with the palace became increasingly tense. Inside, the papers were divided carefully. The first document was a formal will. A later codicil amended part of it. Another letter dealt with jewelry and personal possessions. Beneath those pages were notes written with none of the distance of legal language. Diana mentioned William and Harry together. She wrote about the monarchy, Charles, Camilla, and what might happen if she were no longer present to protect her sons. Then he reached the page concerning her safety. Diana described a fear that an accident might be arranged involving her car, brake failure, and a serious head injury. She connected that fear with Charles being free to marry again. The language echoed the warning later made public by Paul Burrell, but here it sat beside her preparations for William and Harry. The location now mattered as much as the words. These were not papers found among Diana's open estate files or in an archive controlled by the Spencer family. William had found them inside Charles's private vault. His father's name ran through the marriage, the warning, the future with Camilla, and the silence surrounding the bundle. One handwritten note took William back to the Diana the palace first welcomed. She had grown up in the Spencer family, surrounded by privilege, but not protected from family pain. At Park House near Sandringham, she experienced her parents' separation and learned early that a grand home could still contain loneliness. She was playful when she felt safe. Friends remembered her humor, practical jokes, music, dancing, and sudden laughter. William remembered being taken to ordinary restaurants, theme parks, hospitals, and shelters. His mother wanted him and Harry to understand that titles did not place them above other children's fear or grief. That woman seemed far removed from the person who later wrote about a fatal accident. William could see the change across the dates. The earlier language was hopeful. The later notes became guarded. References to Charles shifted from partnership to divided loyalty. Camilla's name appeared beside the loneliness Diana could no longer conceal. The royal wedding at St. Paul's Cathedral on July 29, 1981, had made the marriage appear complete before a worldwide audience. Diana was only 20. She entered the family believing Charles had chosen her not simply as a suitable future queen, but as the person he wanted beside him. The hidden papers showed how quickly that belief weakened. William found no single moment when his mother's personality disappeared. He found a series of wounds. the other woman who never truly left, the illness that became visible through Diana's body, and the palace habit of treating private pain as a problem of public presentation. The sealed bundle was beginning to answer why Diana had written her wishes so carefully. She no longer trusted affection to survive without protection. The next pages showed what the marriage had done to her, long before she began preparing for death. Diana's fairy tale marriage had become unstable before William was old enough to understand it. Charles remained emotionally connected to Camilla Parker Bowles, the woman he had known before the wedding. Diana discovered reminders during the engagement and honeymoon: a bracelet intended for Camilla, cufflinks associated with her, and a photograph among Charles's belongings. The papers in William's hands described the emotional cost without using the language of scandal. Diana wrote about rejection, fear, and the exhaustion of performing happiness. She later spoke publicly about bulimia, postpartum depression, and self-harm. Her illness was not a dramatic detail separate from the marriage. Diana called it a symptom of what was happening around her and a cry for help. Camilla stood at the center of that wound. Diana believed Charles's deepest emotional loyalty remained elsewhere. The palace expected her to fulfill the role of Princess of Wales while living inside a relationship whose true emotional terms had never been explained to her. The personal notes turned Diana's health into part of the vault mystery. She had signed formal estate documents while her marriage, body, and palace position were under severe pressure. Her decisions about William and Harry were not written from a peaceful distance. They were made while she feared losing control of the family she had tried to build. One line concerned the boys being pulled into competing loyalties. Diana understood that William would eventually depend on Charles for preparation as a future king. Harry would grow beside that process, close enough to feel every difference, but unable to inherit the same role. If the marriage ended publicly, both children could be forced to interpret their mother through the institution she no longer trusted. William now saw the hidden will differently. It was not merely an instruction dividing property between two heirs. It was Diana's attempt to leave her sons something the marriage had failed to give her: equal emotional security. The next document contained the sentence that had exposed the triangle to the world. Beside it, Diana had written what she feared the public confession would eventually cost her children. On November 20th, 1995, Diana sat before the cameras for the Panorama interview. William was 13, Harry was 11. Their parents had been separated since 1992, and Charles had already admitted adultery during a 1994 television interview while saying the relationship began after the marriage had irretrievably broken down. Diana described a different emotional sequence. "There were 3 of us in this marriage," she said, "so it was a bit crowded." Camilla was not presented as someone who entered after the marriage failed. Diana believed her continuing presence had helped make the marriage impossible to save. The interview shocked Buckingham Palace because Diana spoke without allowing the institution to control her account. She discussed her health, Charles, Camilla, and her belief that the royal establishment regarded her as a threat. Millions heard the pain the official photographs had concealed. That conflict was especially dangerous for William. As the future king, he would eventually represent the same institution his mother believed had failed her. Harry could stand farther from the crown, but that distance might allow resentment to grow. Diana feared one son would inherit the duty of protecting the palace, while the other inherited the anger of standing outside its center. William paused over a line, asking that neither son be used to weaken the other. Diana did not want her memory turned into a weapon against Charles, but she also did not want palace loyalty to erase what she had endured. She was trying to preserve a truth, complicated enough to hold both parents, without dividing the children. Beneath that note was a page with no mention of television interviews or public opinion. It described a car, failed brakes, and an injury serious enough to remove her permanently. The hidden will had reached the fear at the center of the vault. The warning resembled the handwritten note Paul Burrell disclosed in 2003. Diana described the period as dangerous and wrote that she feared an accident involving her car, brake failure, and a serious head injury. She believed her removal would clear the way for Charles to marry again. Inside the vault, the language appeared beside documents concerning inheritance, guardianship, and personal possessions. That placement made the warning feel less like an isolated fear and more like part of Diana's preparation for a future she believed she might not control. William had spent most of his life carrying questions about August 31st, 1997. He knew the findings of the French investigation, the British inquest, and Operation Paget. He knew the Mercedes entered the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris at high speed. He knew Dodi Fayed and driver Henri Paul also died, while Trevor Rees-Jones survived. Yet this page came from years before the crash. The similarity between the warning and her death gave the page its chilling force. Diana did not die through failed brakes, but she did die after a car crash that caused catastrophic injuries. Charles later married Camilla in 2005. The future Diana connected to her fear eventually became the royal present William knew. The next paper carried a date, June 1st, 1993. It was Diana's formal will. The page shifted the discovery away from the feared accident and toward what Diana had tried to secure if she died. William and Harry appeared as equal beneficiaries. Yet the later markings showed that even these wishes had not remained untouched. Diana signed the will after her formal separation from Charles. A codicil followed on February 1st, 1996, months before the divorce became final. The documents named her mother, Frances Shand Kidd, and her sister, Lady Sarah McCorquodale, as executors and trustees. The residue of the estate was intended to pass equally to William and Harry through trusts. Under the original structure, the princes were expected to receive their shares at 25. Diana also directed that her mother be consulted concerning the education and welfare of her sons. William recognized the legal framework, but the papers beside it revealed Diana's reasoning. She wanted both sons treated as equals, even though the monarchy could never give them equal constitutional futures. Money was not supposed to reproduce the hierarchy surrounding the crown. Her estate belonged to William and Harry as children of the same mother. After Diana's death, the executors obtained a legal variation. The princes could receive income from their shares at 25, while full control of the principal was delayed until 30. The change could be defended as financial protection for young beneficiaries, but it differed from the age Diana had selected. William found notes in the margins referring to both sons together. Diana feared that separate advisors, separate households, and unequal royal futures might eventually make the inheritance feel divided in more than value. She wanted the estate to remind them that everything came from one mother and one shared childhood. The hidden will now presented William with two kinds of alteration. One was legal and documented. The distribution timetable changed after Diana's death. The other was emotional and nearly invisible. The personal explanation attached to her wishes had been separated from the inheritance itself. Then he found a different letter dated June 2nd, 1993, one day after the will. It concerned Diana's possessions, including the jewelry that would later appear in the lives of both sons. Unlike the formal will, this page depended heavily on the discretion of the people left to interpret it. Diana asked that 3/4 of her personal belongings pass to William and Harry. The remaining quarter was intended for her 17 godchildren. She treated her jewelry separately, requesting that it form part of the share held for her sons so their future wives could have it or use it. The exact division remained subject to the executor's discretion. The letter did not carry the same legal force as a formally drafted provision in the will. After Diana's death and the variation of the estate, her godchildren received individual mementos rather than a collective quarter share of the relevant possessions. William read the personal comments attached to the copy inside the vault. Diana did not want one royal household to possess her entire memory. She imagined William and Harry growing into separate adult lives, each surrounded by objects their mother had once worn. The jewelry was meant to cross whatever distance royal duty created between them. That intention later became visible. William gave Diana's sapphire engagement ring to Catherine Middleton when they became engaged in 2010. He explained that the ring was a way of making sure his mother did not miss the excitement of the moment. Catherine carried the most recognizable piece connected to Diana into the future of the monarchy. Harry's household also received objects associated with his mother. Meghan wore Diana's aquamarine ring at her wedding reception and has appeared in butterfly earrings connected to her. The jewelry reached both sons' adult families just as Diana had wanted. Yet the page in William's hands made those objects feel less comforting. The rings and earrings survived. The bond Diana hoped they would protect had weakened. Catherine and Meghan carried visible pieces of the same woman, while William and Harry rarely shared the same room. The next page left jewelry behind entirely. Diana addressed William and Harry not as heirs, princes, or future husbands, but as brothers. William realized that the hidden bundle had been arranged to lead him toward this warning. Diana wrote about two boys who would share a loss no one else could completely understand. She feared that after her death, William's duty to the crown could place him on one side of the family, while Harry's loyalty to her memory placed him on another. William would inherit preparation, advisors, and the direct path toward kingship. Harry would grow beside that structure, close enough to feel every comparison, but unable to inherit the same purpose. Diana understood the danger because royal rank entered family relationships long before children understood what it meant. Diana asked that neither brother use her memory against the other. She wanted William to understand that protecting the crown did not require emotional distance from Harry. She wanted Harry to understand that standing outside the direct succession did not make his life secondary. William could now compare the warning with the present. He had remained inside the institution and moved steadily closer to the throne. Harry had stepped back from senior royal duties in 2020, moved to North America, and publicly described anger toward the palace. Interviews, allegations, and his memoir widened the distance. The brothers who had walked behind Diana's coffin at 15 and 12 now held opposing versions of the same family history. Each could believe he was defending his mother. William protected the future she had once expected him to inherit. Harry argued that leaving was necessary to protect his own wife and children from the forces that had harmed Diana. The page in the vault did not predict every argument. It identified the pressure beneath them. Rank could isolate William. Comparison could wound Harry. Charles and Camilla could become symbols through which the brothers measured loyalty to their mother. William understood why Diana had placed jewelry in both future households and inheritance in equal shares. She had been building physical reminders of a relationship she feared the monarchy might destroy. The warning was no longer theoretical. Her sons had become the divided men she tried to prevent. William returned to the jewelry letter and saw the contradiction clearly. Diana's possessions had traveled almost exactly as she imagined. Her sapphire ring rested on Catherine's hand. Her aquamarine ring and butterfly earrings appeared with Meghan. Both households carried visible pieces of the same mother. But the objects had not created the bridge Diana intended. William remained in Britain, responsible for the future of the monarchy. Harry lived across the Atlantic after leaving senior royal duty. Their wives became part of the conflict. Their children grew up in different countries, and shared appearances became rare. The sapphire ring once symbolized Diana's marriage to Charles. On Catherine, it became part of William's future. The aquamarine ring had belonged to Diana after the marriage ended. On Meghan, it accompanied Harry into a life outside the center of the royal family. Without anyone planning it, the jewelry itself appeared to follow the separate paths Diana feared. The hidden papers made the present conflict feel older than any interview or memoir. It reached back to the marriage between Charles and Diana, the continuing place of Camilla, and the palace culture that placed duty before emotional repair. William and Harry had inherited more than titles and jewelry. They had inherited the unresolved loyalty that damaged their parents. William now faced the most difficult question in the bundle. If Diana's personal appeal concerned him and Harry, why had neither brother received these pages together? Why were the documents locked in Charles's vault rather than placed before both sons when they were old enough to understand them? William gathered the documents in the order he had found them: the 1993 will, the 1996 codicil, the letter of wishes, the private appeal concerning the brothers, and the page echoing Diana's fear of a car accident. Together, they formed one message. Diana feared being removed, forgotten, and followed by division between her children. He carried the sealed bundle out of the vault. The discovery could no longer remain a private question between a son and his mother's handwriting. Every page led toward the same living person. William went to confront Charles. William placed the bundle before his father without separating the legal papers from the personal ones. The will showed what Diana intended William and Harry to inherit. The codicil showed how carefully she had continued preparing as the divorce approached. The letter of wishes explained why her jewelry belonged in both sons' future families. Then William opened the page concerning the brothers. Diana had feared that palace loyalty, unequal royal roles, and resentment surrounding Camilla could pull her children apart. William did not need to imagine the outcome. Harry was already living outside the institution, and communication between them had become rare. Finally, he placed the safety warning before Charles. Diana had written about a car accident, brake failure, and serious injury. She believed her removal could clear the way for Charles to marry again. 4 years later, she died after the Paris crash. 8 years after her death, Charles married Camilla. William's question required no dramatic speech. Why had documents containing Diana's fears and final appeal been sealed inside Charles' private vault? Charles recognized the dates before William finished arranging the pages. The will belonged to the year after the separation. The codicil came from the final months before the divorce. The warning reached back to the period when Diana believed Charles and Camilla were moving toward the life she had been expected to leave behind. For William, his father's silence carried its own answer. Whatever explanation existed for storing the documents, Charles had understood their connection to Diana's fear. The vault had protected the paper while keeping its emotional meaning away from the two sons named throughout it. The discovery stunned the royal family because it was larger than a dispute over money. Diana's estate had been distributed. The princes eventually received their inheritance. Her jewelry entered the households of both sons. The legal work appeared complete. What remained unresolved was the purpose behind those wishes. Diana had treated inheritance as a way to protect equality between brothers whose royal futures would never be equal. She had treated jewelry as a way to connect the women they would marry. She had written privately because she feared the palace would preserve the institution more carefully than the relationship between her children. Charles could explain why records were stored, copied, or protected. He could point to estate procedure, privacy, and the years of conflict following Diana's death. But none of those explanations could remove the emotional fact confronting him. William had found his mother's final fears in the private space, controlled by the man she no longer trusted. The hidden will revealed two warnings. Diana feared something might happen to her, and she feared what would happen to William and Harry afterward. The first warning became haunting after August 31st, 1997. The second unfolded slowly across decades until her sons lived on opposite sides of an ocean. William now held the only part he could still change. He could not return Diana to the boys who walked behind her coffin. He could not undo Charles's marriage, the Paris crash, the altered estate arrangements, or the years of silence. He could decide whether protecting the monarchy required allowing his relationship with Harry to remain broken. Diana's sealed papers had survived inside the vault. Her jewelry had survived on Catherine and Meghan. Her most personal wish had not survived at all. The royal family was stunned because William did not emerge with evidence that he had been denied a fortune. He emerged with proof that Diana had understood the family's deepest danger. The conflict that destroyed her marriage could continue through her sons if duty, resentment, and divided loyalty became stronger than brotherhood. William entered Charles's vault, searching for family records. He left carrying a final request from his mother. "Do not let the palace make you and Harry strangers." The papers were hidden for years. The warning inside them is now impossible to hide. Whether Diana's final wish can still be honored depends not on Charles, Camilla, or the vault, but on what William does after opening it.